What if the units of Army Group B would have stopped on the first days of September of 1942? When resistance was cleared from the west side of the Don River, the Army Group would have spent the rest of the summer and autumn strengthening its lines based on the Don, with particular attention paid to fortifying the Don Bend. What if the German army hadn't attacked Stalingrad and would have focused its best field units and all the supplies on taking Baku? Before I answer this question and introduce you an alternative scenario, let's discuss the background factors first. The German army suffered its first major defeat of the Second World War in Russia during the winter of 1941 and 42. A combination of faulty intelligence, poor logistical planning, weather conditions, and the sheer tenacity of the Red Army brought the German invaders to a halt along the entire front. The German leadership decided in early 1942 that the renewed summer offensive would not be aimed at the Soviet capital city, but instead towards the vitally important oil-producing regions in the south. The German army would face a serious crisis in terms of operational freedom if it did not seize the Soviet oil. A further factor for this plan was that if successful, it would have the added boon of denying the Soviets their own most important source of oil. The new offensive in 1942 would only be conducted on one single axis. So the Baku oil region was the main objective of the German 42 campaign and also of the entire war. This area contained some of the largest oil fields in the world and produced 90% of the Soviet Union's oil, about 20 million tons in 1942. The German plan involved a three-staged attack. Blau 1, 4th Panzer Army would attack from Kursk to Voronezh and continue the advance, anchoring the northern flank of the offensive towards the Volga. Blau 2, 6th Field Army would attack from Kharkov and move in parallel with the 4th Panzer Army to reach the Volga at Stalingrad, which capture was not deemed necessary. And finally, Blau 3, the 1st Panzer Army would then strike south to Baku. Believing that the main Soviet threat had been eliminated and needing to meet all the objectives, Hitler made a series of changes to the plan on the 23rd of July 1942. He reorganized Army Group South into two smaller army groups, Group A and B. He directed Army Group A to advance to capture the oil fields and directed Army Group B to attack towards Stalingrad. Now, at this point, let me present you an alternative scenario. Units of the Army Group B cleared all Soviet resistance from the west side of the Don River. Once this was achieved, that Army Group would spend the rest of the summer and fall strengthening its line based on the Don River. Historically, the German allies failed to clear all areas to the west of the river, which was a critical mistake that allowed the Soviets an easier time when commencing their counteroffensive in November of 1942. But now let's return to the scenario. Once the west bank of the Don is cleared, 6th Army takes up defensive positions along the Don River in early September of 1942, and Army Group A, with reinforcements, all the supplies and air support, proceeds south into the Caucasus, capturing much of its oil reserves. Since Stalingrad isn't be targeted for capture, 4th Panzer Army can participate in the operation in the south. Since the German airborne forces were relatively intact in the middle of 1942, I think that a large-scale division-level airborne operation to take the oil refinery of Grozny would have been possible. As mentioned earlier, this move would have been beneficial for the Germans, as a means of denying much of the oil to the Red Army, even if temporarily. It's doubtful that this move have changed the war's outcome. Historically, the only oil field that the German army managed to conquer was the Maikop oil field in August of 1942. Before the Germans were forced to withdraw from the region in early 1943, they had actually managed to extract and refine in the field some 700 tons of petroleum. But the above-mentioned scenario would have given much more time to produce petrol from more of these field refineries that the Germans managed to set up. What do you think?